Strickland and Khamzat fight is going to be very interesting. Strickland is not an easy guy to take down, and he's not an easy guy to hold down, and he's a very difficult guy to hit on his feet. And he's got a super awkward style early on in the fight, whether or not Strickland can avoid the takedown and whether or not Khamzat can hit him and whether or not he can avoid getting hit, because Strickland will set some traps. He's sneaky with his striking.
It's so hard to even think anybody could stop Khamzat right now at anything.
We're seeing with Fluffy, Strickland can change styles of fights. You know, we know Fluffy likes to be he's a grinder, he likes to put pressure on guys, but Strickland managed to kind of slow him down in what he wanted to do. So if you can do that against Khamzat, and the Khamzat style is very, you know, it expresses a lot of energy. So if you can do that against Khamzat, you never know what could happen towards the end. But if I was betting on the fight, I would go with Khamzat.
The words were spoken with zero hesitation, and the entire room went cold. Sean Strickland didn't just decline the matchup, he destroyed the narrative. "I hate him," he said, his voice dripping with genuine animosity that you just don't see in modern sports. This wasn't a promotional stunt or a way to sell pay-per-views. It was a flat-out refusal to play the UFC's game. When a fighter of this caliber tells the world he won't give the sport's most hyped prospect the satisfaction of a fight, the shockwaves reached the very top of the corporate ladder. The fallout was immediate, and the consequences are still being felt throughout the organization today.
I don't know. I didn't really think too much about it, but I'm happy that Sean Strickland's getting the opportunity. I'm Team USA still. And, yeah, I hope he wins. I think he's got a good opportunity. I think he's got good takedown defense. I think he's got good get-ups. I think he's got a real opportunity to win. So best of luck to Sean Strickland, and I hope he wins.
Dana White has dealt with difficult personalities for decades, but this was on a completely different level of defiance. To have a top-tier champion openly state that a fight shouldn't even exist is the ultimate nightmare for a promoter. It challenges the entire structure of how the UFC builds its stars. Khamzat Chimaev was supposed to be the untouchable force, the inevitable heir to the throne, but the internal revolt has thrown those plans into total chaos. The tension behind the scenes is reaching a breaking point as the boss tries to maintain control over a roster that seems more interested in personal vendettas than following the company script.
Is that sort of lowered down, or do you still dislike him? Where do you stand with him?
I still...
The core of the issue stems from a deep-seated belief that Khamzat is getting a free pass to the top. Insiders are now whispering that the UFC's matchmaking process is being compromised by favoritism. One prominent fighter even went on record saying he doesn't know who is making the decisions anymore. From the outside looking in, the logic just doesn't hold up. They see a fighter being pushed into positions they haven't earned, while veterans are being used as stepping stones. This isn't just about one fight. It's a fundamental disagreement about the soul of the sport and whether the most dangerous man in the room is being protected or tested.
I still want to fight him. I know my potential. I know I can beat him. I know I'm not a good match for him. That's why, and I hate him. So.
But then you talk to the people who have actually stepped onto the mat with the man they call the Wolf. They don't see a protected prospect. They see a physical anomaly that defies explanation. One training partner described him as a monster, emphatically stating that he is simply not normal. In the gym, away from the cameras and the flashing lights, Khamzat displays a level of athletic and technical prowess that leaves even professional athletes in awe. When a peer who routinely trains with elite fighters calls someone a monster, it carries a weight that no marketing campaign can match. This is the terrifying reality that the rest of the division has to face.
Well, I think Khamzat's going to win, and I'm rooting for him. But one thing I like being around...
The contrast between the public persona and the private athlete is jarring. While the world sees a fierce, aggressive warrior, his teammates describe a man who is surprisingly humble and dedicated to his craft. He isn't just relying on raw talent or brute strength. He has a professional team around him that operates with surgical precision. Before major fights, he is known to stay after hours, happily showing training partners new positions and sharing techniques. This generosity with knowledge is rare in such a competitive, individualistic sport. It paints a picture of a man who truly loves the art of combat, even if the world only sees the destruction he leaves behind.
He's just a guy that works hard. I mean, he just goes and does his job. He loves what he does. He's very intense when he does his workouts. We're always when I'm in there with him, we're pushing each other, but also he's a very, I've said it time and time again, just a very humble guy. He's got a professional team, and before I left to this fight, I said, "Hey, Khamzat, can you show me a few positions I want to ask you?"
Sean Strickland, however, isn't buying into the legend. He sees the traps, and he thinks he's the only one smart enough to avoid them. Strickland's style is notoriously awkward and difficult to plan for. He's sneaky with his striking and has a way of slowing down high-energy opponents until they're gasping for air. He's done it before against aggressive grapplers, and he's confident he can do it again. To him, Khamzat isn't some mythical creature. He's just another guy with a lot of hype and a gas tank that might not last if the fight gets ugly. Strickland is betting on the fact that he can neutralize the pressure and force a different kind of fight.
From here, and he was really happy to show me, and yeah, just a great guy, really cool, and his whole team is just awesome. So
the animosity between these two has moved past the point of professional rivalry. When asked point blank if they were friends, the response was a sharp public drawing of lines. No, he is not my friend. There is no mutual respect here, only a cold, hard distance. This isn't the kind of beef where they'll shake hands after the final bell. It's a clash of cultures and personalities that simply cannot coexist in the same space. This personal vendetta is what makes the situation so volatile. It's why the UFC is struggling to keep the peace, as the friction between their top stars threatens to ignite into something they can't control.
Yeah, again, I spoke about it the other day. I don't even think that fight shouldn't even exist right now. I feel like again, I don't know who's making decisions to make these fights. And I'm sure they know better than me, but just from the outside looking in, I feel like
Strickland's refusal to fight isn't born out of fear, but out of a calculated strategic dismissal. He essentially told the world that he knows he can beat Khamzat, and that he's a terrible matchup for him. By saying I won't fight him, he's attempting to strip away the Wolf's power without ever stepping into the octagon. It's the ultimate slap in the face. He's denying the prospect the one thing he needs most, a chance to prove himself against a top-tier name. This kind of raw, unfiltered disdain sends a powerful message to the fans and the front office. It's a claim of total dominance before the first punch is even thrown.
In the gym, you know, working very closely with him, and that guy's a monster. Yeah, he's not normal. And I always say it's nice to see someone.
The tactical breakdown of this potential clash is a nightmare for odds makers. Even those who admit they are bad at predictions can see the clear paths to victory for both sides. The blueprint for Khamzat is simple but devastating. Put them down, hold them there, and finish the fight. It's a suffocating style that has broken the will of almost everyone he's faced. But if Strickland can utilize his much-touted takedown defense and his ability to get back to his feet, the momentum shifts instantly. If the fight stays standing and becomes a battle of attrition, the energy-expensive style of the Wolf could become his biggest liability.
Is, you know, is very high level in a slightly different area. And I'm watching him, and it was beautiful to watch. Beautiful to watch. So, yeah, it's seeing it up close and personal. Obviously, seeing it in the fights, but seeing it up close and personal, he's going to be a tough person to beat.
There is a growing sentiment within the fighter community that the UFC is playing a dangerous game with their matchmaking. The frustration is palpable when you hear athletes talk about how certain fights shouldn't even exist. They feel the logical progression of the division is being ignored in favor of whoever has the most social media followers. This creates a toxic environment where the rankings feel meaningless. When the fighters themselves start questioning the integrity of the brackets, you know there's a serious problem at the heart of the organization. The boss is facing a rebellion from the people who actually step into the cage.
It's a good question. I don't have idea, man.
Despite the internal drama, the sheer talent on display is undeniable. Those who have seen Khamzat up close describe his grappling as beautiful to watch. There is a fluidity and effectiveness to his movements that transcends typical fighter standards. It's a high-level blend of wrestling and striking that makes him a nightmare to prepare for. Even his detractors have to admit that he is a unique force in the sport. The problem isn't his skill, it's the way that skill is being managed and marketed. The gap between his performance and his reputation is where the controversy lives, and it's getting wider every single day.
Chimaev gonna do the same thing. I think he's gonna try his, put down and hold and try to finish the fight.
Strickland remains the ultimate wild card in this equation. He is Team USA through and through, and his confidence in his own abilities is unshakable. He believes his takedown defense is the key to unlocking the puzzle that has stumped so many others. He's not intimidated by the intensity or the aura of invincibility. In fact, he seems to relish the opportunity to be the one who finally stops the hype train in its tracks. His self-belief is a powerful weapon, and in a sport where mental toughness is everything, that might be enough to tip the scales in his favor if the two ever actually meet.
I don't know if Strickland can handle that, but if he can, yeah, he has chance, you know.
The energy levels in these high-stakes matchups are always a major factor. Khamzat's style expresses a lot of energy early on, which can be a double-edged sword. If he can't get the early finish, he risks running out of steam against a guy like Strickland, who is used to the deep water. We've seen Strickland change the stars of fights before, slowing down aggressive opponents and forcing them to play his game. If he can weather the initial storm, the later rounds could belong entirely to him. It's a classic battle between the explosive finisher and the relentless grinder, and the stakes couldn't be any higher. The UFC is currently navigating a minefield of personal conflicts and professional demands. The narrative of a deep personal rivalry beyond the octagon is what sells tickets, but it also makes the athletes harder to manage. When the hate becomes real, the standard rules of engagement go out the window. The organization is trying to find a way to capitalize on the animosity without letting it tear the division apart. But with fighters like Strickland being so vocal about their disdain, the task is becoming nearly impossible. Every press conference is a potential explosion, and every interview adds more fuel to the fire. What's most fascinating is how the people who know Khamzat best are the ones defending his character. They talk about his work ethic and how he pushes everyone in the gym to be better. They describe a professional who lives and breathes martial arts, dispelling any notion that his success is purely based on raw talent. This paints a picture of a focused athlete who is being caught in the crossfire of a larger organizational battle. He's doing his job, and he's doing it better than almost anyone else, but the politics of the sport are threatening to overshadow his accomplishments in the cage. The uncertainty surrounding the future of the middleweight division is at an all-time high. Even the most seasoned analysts are struggling to predict how this will all play out. The repeated admissions of "I don't know" from experts show just how balanced and unpredictable the top of the mountain has become. It's a nuanced situation where one fighter's evolution meets another's sheer force of nature. This intrigue is what keeps the fans coming back, but it's also what's keeping the front office up at night. They have two massive stars who seem to be on a collision course that might destroy both of them. Strickland's mention of his patriotic pride and his desire to win for his country adds another layer to the conflict. He's not just fighting for himself, he's fighting for a legacy. This mindset gives him an extra edge, a reason to push through the pain when things get tough. He acknowledges the opportunity he's been given, and he's not planning on wasting it. He knows the eyes of the world are on him, and he's ready to prove that he belongs at the top, regardless of what the critics or the promoters might think. He's a man on a mission, and nothing is going to stand in his way. The tactical evolution of Sean Strickland has been one of the most surprising storylines in recent years. He's gone from a gritty brawler to a sophisticated technician who can neutralize almost any style. His ability to resist or quickly escape suffocating wrestling positions will be the deciding factor in any fight against someone like Khamzat. He clearly believes he has the tools to upset the odds, and his history of doing exactly that is hard to ignore. He's a fighter who thrives on being the underdog, and the more people doubt him, the more dangerous he becomes in the octagon. On the other side, the relentless pressure of the Wolf remains the most terrifying threat in the division. It's a classic blueprint that has stifled many opponents before they even had a chance to get started. The aggressive wrestling and dominant top control are more than just techniques. They're a statement of intent. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to break his opponents. This intensity is what makes him such a polarizing figure. You either love the dominance or you hate the way it's being handled, but you cannot look away when he steps into the cage to do his work. The ultimate question is whether the UFC can force this fight to happen, or if the internal resistance will prove too strong. The refusal to fight is a power move that we don't see often, and it's put the organization in a very difficult position. They want the big matchups, but they also have to deal with the reality of fighter autonomy. If a top contender flat out says no, there are only so many levers the boss can pull. The rage coming from the top is a direct result of this loss of control. The stars are starting to realize they have more leverage than they thought. As the temperature continues to rise, the fans are left wondering what the landscape of the UFC will look like a year from now. Will the Wolf be the undisputed king, or will the internal sabotage from fighters like Strickland be his undoing? The clash of deeply rooted antagonisms is far from over. In fact, it might just be getting started. Every comment, every refusal, and every training camp update is a new chapter in a story that is quickly becoming the most controversial in the history of the sport. The lines have been drawn, and there is no turning back for anyone involved. The breakdown of communication between the athletes and the promotion is a sign of a much larger shift in the industry. Fighters are no longer just happy to be there. They want to dictate the terms of their own careers. This creates a friction that is both exciting for the fans and exhausting for the management. The sport is evolving, and the old ways of doing business are being challenged at every turn. The chaos we're seeing now is just the growing pains of a new era where the athletes have a voice, and they're not afraid to use it to disrupt the status quo. Ultimately, the future of these two warriors will be decided by their actions, not their words. Whether it's a strategic dismissal or a monster performance in the gym, the truth will eventually come out in the cage. The middleweight division is a powder keg waiting for a spark, and the tension between the hype and the reality is reaching its limit. One thing is certain, the sport will never be the same after this. The battle for control, respect, and the championship belt is a high-stakes game where one mistake can end a career, and one victory can cement a legend forever.